Years ago in one of our first churches, Billy started coming to church with several other adults from a local group home. And each of these folks were people with special needs and special gifts. Billy is the only one I truly remember because he was extremely outgoing and enthusiastic, and he became my friend. He was confined to a wheelchair, and when he said hello, which was always loud, his body twisted and jerked, nearly throwing him out of his chair. Billy did not have a quiet mode when it came to talking. The whole church knew when Billy showed up. His smile was infectious, and his sense of humor was sharp. Every Sunday I look forward to seeing Billy. The excitement he showed in being able to just go to church was infectious. Sort of like Maggie yelling out, "Yay!" every once in a while from the children's corner over here. And as Billy and I got to know one another, he shared with me some of his deep frustration at being confined to a body that seemed out of control. His parents, whom he loved very much, had taken him to many doctors and healers, only to be disappointed time and time again. When Jesus came to Simon's house after church, or I should say after synagogue, they found Simon's mother-in-law in bed. She had taken ill with a high fever. Jesus takes her by the hand and lifts her up, and immediately she is made well. Whatever her affliction happened to be, it left her, and she was able to get up out of bed and go on with life. And then later that day, after sunset, because remember it was still the Sabbath, people started bringing their sons, their daughters, their mothers, their fathers, neighbors, and cousins to be healed by Jesus. And in Mark it says, the whole city was gathered around the door, watching as Jesus healed people who were imprisoned by maladies and sick with disease. It was amazing. It was the biggest thing to happen in Capernaum in a century. Centuries before that, Isaiah, in an attempt to encourage the Israelites who were returning from captivity, battered, oppressed, and sad. To encourage them, he gives us one of the most beloved phrases in the Bible. Those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. It seems to me that all it takes is the touch of God to be physically renewed, healed, strengthened, and make all things right again. That's certainly how it appears in certain scriptures, and it's how we hear certain people of faith describe the healing powers of God. But that's not always how we experience it. In that church with Billy, there was a small group of folks who were wanting more of an emphasis on fundamentalism and charismatic movement. This group of folks went to a revival in downtown Los Angeles, and I don't remember who, it was a very famous person, I can't remember who it was that was there at the revival, but at that revival they witnessed an amazing time of faith healing. And so the group became even more eager to move the church in that direction. So when they returned to church, they wanted to take a few moments in worship to tell about their experience. They were over the moon with excitement. So on the next Sunday, they were reporting about the faith healing portion of the revival, and in their excitement, they blurted out, "And if there's anyone here this morning who wants to be healed, come up and be healed." And before I could intervene, I heard the unmistakable and loud voice of Billy from the back of the sanctuary. "I do, I do." And he was already pushing himself up the center aisle. At this point, I felt helpless. All I could do was watch and wait, because I wasn't about to tell Billy no. This little group gathered around him and they started to pray. And their prayer was as earnest as any prayer has ever been. And their faith was deep and their intention was pure. And they laid hands on Billy and tears streamed down his face. The morning after Jesus had healed all those folks in Capernaum, very early in the day, he went off by himself to pray. And as the disciples woke up, they soon realized he wasn't in the house, and immediately they set out to find him, because in their minds, he probably didn't understand that there would be even more people to heal that day. Everyone was eager to have Jesus touch them, to heal them, to take care of that persistent pain in their shoulder, or their lack of hearing, or their blindness, or their seizures, or a million other difficulties. Because word had spread and people would be lining up by noon. "Hey guys, I found him, he's over here." "Jesus, we've got to head back into town, everybody's looking for you." And Jesus said, "No. No. We're not going back into town. We're leaving so that I might spread my teaching across the countryside." So there would be people in Capernaum that day that were left unhealed. The touch of God was moving on. There are times when we want to be able to use God like a magic wand to change things, to heal the ones we love, to prevent violence, to create a better world. And we're sometimes disappointed when God doesn't work that way. If only Jesus would stay around and take care of our every need. If only God would truly give us the strength to mount up with wings as eagles every time we're weary and discouraged. If only our prayers and desires were like marching orders for God, and God would do our bidding every moment of every day. Where is the touch of God when we need it? Billy sat in his wheelchair at the front of the sanctuary until I went up and gave him a hug. The tears were still streaming down his face, but the hopeful look had left his eyes. The small group of folks had wandered back to their places in the pews, and I pushed Billy back to his place, his body still twisted and jerking. I don't remember anything else that took place in worship that day. I don't remember how I moved the congregation beyond what had just happened, but I do remember greeting Billy every Sunday until he could no longer attend church. I remember the joy that we felt when we saw each other. I remember being touched by his enthusiasm and his joy. His presence and his face are a permanent part of my life's journey to this day. Church, over the past few weeks, we've been on a journey together, and we would have done almost anything to change the outcome. It is really hard and painful to lose someone whose presence and leadership have been so transformative in this church. someone whose humor and carefully chosen words of meditation and guidance have become a part of what this church means to us. Where is the touch of God? I think we sometimes get confused about what it means to be touched by God. Sometimes miracles and healing are deeper and far more profound than merely changing an unwanted outcome. Because the touch of God was there, and it's here. It's in the hugs and tears shared in a hospital room. The touch of God is in the words of caring and the arms of support that buoy us through pain. The touch of God is in the words of love and appreciation that are shared from our hearts. Just like the touch of God had been there when Billy hugged me, looking up with a seeming awareness that the prayers were not going to heal him that day, but they had created a moment of hope. The touch of God was in the sheer joy and laughter that erupted every week when I saw him rolling his wheelchair across the parking lot. The touch of God is there whenever we serve a hot meal to a man who struggles every day to keep warm and get something nutritious in his belly. The touch of God is there when a new pair of socks keep a 20-year-old's feet warm and clean. The touch of God is there when a warm coat or a pair of pants or a dress or shoes goes out through the doors of Joseph's closet. The touch of God is there when we reach across our comfort zones to lift up, to encourage, to love, and to embrace one another. The touch of God is here in these hands. The touch of God is there in those hands. It's in our hearts. It's there when we allow ourselves to be instruments of God's grace and love. It's powerful. It's life-changing. It connects us to one another in strong and eternal ways. The touch of God moves us to care in a world where it is increasingly becoming easy to lose hope and become jaded. The touch of God, when applied generously, will change the church. It will change the community. It will bring folks in. It will bring folks together. It will find new lives to touch and care for. It will lift us up out of bed and allow us to serve once again. And someday, I knew I was going to have trouble. Someday when we come to the end of this earthly journey, when our energy has left us and we breathe our last, God will touch us once again, and we will mount up with wings